everybody. Welcome to the First Responders Financial Freedom Podcast with
Mike Webb,
Tyler Thrush,
and obviously Aaron Foster. That's me. So thanks everybody to coming in and listening to our chatter. This is our first episode. We'll be talking to first responders from all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside of their first responder jobs. So our goal is to motivate and to educate each other and try to provide a better financial understanding and a better financial future for each person who's part of our group and chat. I know we've got guys from all over the country that do real estate. We're going to get some guys now who do drones. We have cops, state troopers, nurses all lined up who want to be part of this. So for today, we're just going to introduce ourselves and just talk a little bit and tell you who we are and what our plans are. So Mike, can you tell me a little bit about where you came from, where you're at now, and where you're going?
Sure. My name is Mike Webb, and I am a firefighter on the East Coast, just outside the DC, Baltimore area. And I've been there for about 15 years and in the fire service about 17 years. I have two boys, one's 1 and one's 10, and I'm married. And I started this Facebook group, the First Responder Financial Freedom Group, kind of just after a couple of years of doing real estate and meeting guys like Tyler and Aaron and realizing that there was a lot more of us out there than I thought. And I thought it would be kind of a cool little platform to just kind of share ideas and talk about things that are working or not working. And then that kind of led us to making this podcast. So kind of looking to share a bunch of ideas with folks that are looking for just another means to provide for their family, whether they're on the job, retiring, or God forbid have to retire due to injury, that they have another way to keep food on the table and a roof over their head. So my side hustle to do that has been real estate for the last several years. And I get a lot of questions about how to do it, what to do, when to do, etc. So hopefully this is a way that we can kind of share collectively some knowledge that we've gained by pounding our head against the table and help some other folks maybe be a little more successful, a little bit faster, or also for us to meet other folks that are doing other things, whether it be grass mowing businesses or owning a laundromat, trading NFTs, an eBay business, whatever that may be. We just want to look to bring people like that on here and just kind of share a little bit about what they're doing and how they're doing it. So like I said, I primarily do real estate. I've been flipping, wholesaling, doing rental properties, owner financing, stuff like that. And if some of that is a whirlwind of terminology, I'm sure we'll dive a little bit deeper into that in this episode or episodes to come. So that's just me in a nutshell.
Super sweet. And if you guys didn't know, Mike is a superstar. He was on Bigger Pockets. Do you know what podcast you were on?
I don't. Probably what everyone has the least amount of downloads. That one. Look for that one.
We'll find it out later.
I don't know off the top of my head, but we'll put it in the show notes.
Yep.
I don't know what that means yet, but we'll do it.
Tyler Thrush is out in California. So Tyler, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Tyler Thrush. I am a firefighter out here in Southern California. I am married. I have 2 kids, a son and a daughter. I've been with my department for a little over 12 years now. But prior to that, and then currently, I've always had some type of job or side hustle in real estate. I love it. I've done mortgage, realtor, title insurance, pretty much anything you can think of prior to leaving college. So I had a lot of experience in it. And then once I got out of the tower and done with my probationary period, I jumped back into it and I've been doing it ever since. I do flips, wholesales, rentals. I lend private money. I just love real estate, and that's been my side hustle. And it's kind of my thing was I could do this or work a bunch of overtime. And while I love the job, I also like being home. And this is something that provides me the opportunity to do stuff at home and be with my family and still provide a good living. And I'm just excited to share. I love sharing with the guys on the job. A lot of guys know what I do, and I get a bunch of questions. And it seems like each year I get more and more. And I love talking to them. I love seeing them taking action and seeing guys buying rentals or doing something like that. So super excited to share what I know and also learn a bunch of stuff from you guys and then whoever we have on the podcast as guests. I love learning, and I like the idea of multiple streams of income. So looking forward to it.
So these guys are being modest. I know both of them on a personal level. These guys are more whales than they are smaller fish. I'm the small fish in the group. My name is Aaron Foster. I do 1 to 5 deals a year. These guys probably do that in a month or so. We have a lot of experience combined between our departments and our professional lives. I've been with the fire department for 23 years, 18 of the last 23 with DC. Retire in 7 years, and I want to have ability to have financial freedom when I leave, and I have to work a part time if I don't want to. So one of the things when we first started this recording, which was an error on my part because I didn't hit the record button, we were going to talk about retirement and other side hustles that we have going on. So one of the cool things is we have people from all over the country who are going to come on here and talk, nurses, cops, firefighters, state troopers, and everybody in between. So we got newbies, we got people who have a lot of experience, and hopefully this thing kicks off and we have more people who are going to hop on and join the Facebook group First Responder Financial Freedom. But for now, like, let's chat it up and talk about a couple of like our highlight topics. So like one of the things I want to touch on was retirements. That's a big thing that guys focus on and don't really realize what they have. Like they just know they work for 25 or 30 years and then they retire with the pension that they get. So DC is self-funded. I don't know about Tyler, you're over in California. Mike, you're in Maryland. Are you guys self-funded, or is it state funded? Is it city funded?
So we have our own. Lucera has their own. Like California, the large one is CalPERS, but yeah, LA County as a whole has their own.
Cool. How about you guys, Mike?
Yeah, county funded.
County funded,
and then public safety, I believe, has its own separate like account. So there's like general county employees, and then there's public safety. So, and frankly, this is one of those topics that like retirement feels a little bit far away at times, but for me, I think less than 6 years at this point. So it's one of those things that's far enough away where you don't really worry about it. And frankly, I've never been overly concerned about what my retirement or pension income will be, because I kind of view that as kind of like Social Security. That's just going to be gravy. But it would be worthwhile to bring somebody in that knows pensions and financial planning for pensions and can kind of deep dive it, because that's something that, there's a lot of experts around the kitchen table and that kind of stuff. But a lot of times it's like they're getting bad information from the guy that didn't have the information, so on and so forth. Next thing you know, it's completely wrong. And you don't want to find out 2 months before you retire by going to that seminar that they hold and realize like all the information you thought was the case was in actually not the case. So, yeah, that would definitely be something to check out. But
so
I was just curious. Go ahead.
In our DCFD group, talk around the days, guys can buy their military service time back, and put it towards the end of their retirement. So I know some people don't know that. So with us, like if you do your 25 years and then you buy back 4 years of your military time, you're actually retiring at 29 years with the benefits of the 29-year firefighter veteran. Well, one of the some of the people in the country, some of the departments, like the city controls their retirements, and a lot of them have gone bankrupt. And I don't think some guys know who controls their finances. So it's one of the things I think a lot of the guys listening, it doesn't matter what department you work for, fire, police, or anybody else, who controls your money and what they're doing with it. That's something you need to pay attention to, because if they bankrupt it, you're working for 25 years for nothing.
Well, and I think it's a good point too, because back in the day, my parents' generation, their parents' generation, a pension was like, okay, this is going to happen. This is guaranteed. I'm going to get my pension the day I retire, and nothing's ever going to change that. But I feel like as we go on, and like you said, more and more, city, state, whatever, federally funded pensions start to go bankrupt or things happen. And if that's your only plan, I do not want to be 50 or 55 and realize, oh, I don't have a backup plan. I was counting on a pension that everybody else before me has always had. And I don't know about you guys, but at 41, I'm nowhere near as motivated as I was at 31. So I think if for me, like 50, 55, and I'm like, wait, my pension's not there for me, I just doesn't sit right with me. And that's what I've always told guys is I would rather take a little control and have a good backup plan. Kind of like Mike said, even to the point where that's what I'm counting on living on. And if my pension is there, that is gravy. I think it's huge. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of us do our side hustles and try to set ourselves up for success.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've made this comment before, but it's kind of like a lot of people, and I'm sure you guys have heard it before, that you don't want to buy rentals, you don't want to invest in real estate. That's super risky. And while I agree that if you do it wrong, there is a lot of risk, there's always some risk, right? But to me, it's riskier to put my entire well-being and my family's well-being in one source of income, and especially a source of income that frankly is controlled by elected officials, which at some, these 4 years, you might be great. The next 4 years, they might be trying to lay you off, or you're one call away from maybe being retired medically. And then it's like, if the only thing you know how to do is swing a hammer and go to the firehouse, like what happens whenever you can't physically put that roof on or mow that grass? Like, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to provide?
That's one of the things. I got almost retired medically when I detached my ankle in a house fire, and we get a percentage of a percentage. So I would have taken home $18,000 a year, and the way our medical disability a year, $18,000 a year, and the way it works with us is every dollar we make on another company that our name is in takes 50 cents off of the dollar from the medical disability. So for one deal, if I made $36,000, then it would wipe my entire medical disability income away forever. So a lot of guys don't know what their medical, like if you do get hurt in the job, like what happens to you. Like right now, Tyler's got an atrophied leg, a chicken leg, because he got. So he's been in the same boat as me. It's one of those things like you just don't think about it, like it's not going to happen to me, but it might. Sure. It's a small chance, but we got a lot of injuries in this job: backs, ankles, knees, shoulders.
Injuries aside, think about the guys that are, wearing the badge on the other side of the fence. That police officers, man, they've had nothing but a rough couple years, right? There's a lot of guys just leaving the force, and how many guys would leave the force if they had something, to go to, right?
Even the Facebook group, like there's so many police officers in there. Like if I can replace my income, I am leaving.
Yeah, there's one in particular, and I know we're going to get him on the show, but he's already said, I am not going back. I do not care. So I can't wait to get him on, because I think it's going to be probably a eye-opening for some folks, right? Like, no, I started this job, and let's face it, most of us got on the job. Like when I got hired, I did not care about insurance, retirement. Like I'm 24. I want to go to fires. Like that's all I want to do. Next thing you know, you're riding an ambulance for the first couple of years, right? And then you start to have that family, and maybe you start to plan for a family. Even you start to maybe recalibrate some of that thinking. It's like, oh, I want to do this, but I'm going to have to work 74 hours of overtime this pay period, right? So now you're doing all this stuff that you want to do or provide for your family, like you envision you want to provide, but you're doing it at the expense of being there. So it's kind of like when you first start out on the job, none of that makes any sense to you. But as I guess we get a little bit older, wise up just a hair. So
let's talk about like some of the stuff we've been into. So like these guys have done a little bit of everything. So Tyler does like he's kind of a unique, because he does long distance investing, because he lives in California, but he invests in Boise, Idaho. Like how did that happen, Tyler?
Well, I wanted to get into wholesaling and flipping in Southern California. It's just like it's super competitive, and I know there's a lot of competitive markets, but there's a ton of deep pockets. So I started out putting bandit signs. I put it all on a credit card. A bandit sign is, a lot of people will see them during, imagine like during an election period where you see the little yard signs. They have a little H stake in there, and I just, I did the We Buy Houses. And I put out, I want to say 1,500, maybe 2,000 of them over so many weeks. And then I finally got a deal, and I was like, man, this is kicking my butt. Like, I don't know how I'm going to compete here. And I started learning PPC on my own, and I started to try out Boise, because kind of like Aaron, I didn't know
what's PPC.
Oh, there we go. PPC is pay-per-click advertising. So if you enter a search term into Google, you're going to have the very top portion of the page is going to be their ads, and that's how Google makes a lot of their money. So what I try to do is to have my ad appear 1, 2, or 3 if you enter certain phrases, like sell my house fast for cash, for example. So I learned how to do that through podcasts, through YouTube, and I started to get traction in Boise right away. And Boise was a market that prior to the last crash, like Aaron said, I had properties in Dallas and then in California I was interested in, and then I got throttled through that crash, and so I had to retool. And Boise was a market I knew previously, so I went there, started getting a couple deals, and then I just honestly took like the next indicated step each time we did something. I was nervous, but just, hey, got to find a contractor, got to do this, and then it's just kind of grown to where I've been there for 4 years now, and it's very comfortable for me to invest remotely. I don't treat it any differently than I would if there was a house down the street that I was going to buy, and I just have my system now, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, I like doing it, and it was a market that I could afford too. And I hear a lot of guys in our group say a lot of things are too expensive, so that's another reason. Is like, where can I go with my marketing budget right now and try to like make my stand or to get a house? And that's a big reason why I chose Boise. Is my pay-per-click there versus California was drastically lower.
So you also have to have like a team there, right?
Yeah.
Like your contractor, your realtor. Like, can you tell me how you found the team and how you work with them and how like you guys go over everything?
It was hard. No. I think it was, honestly, I can't remember. It was like realtor.com or Zillow. It was just like, I'm a big like shoot first, aim later. I was like, well, let's just call agents. We got an agent. We talked to him. He helped us out. Once we got the property under contract, he comped it for us. He let us know that it was good. And he's actually been with me since the very start, but we used him on that first deal. And then when I was in escrow, we asked the escrow officer, hey, who do you know that does a lot of GC work? Because we don't know any general contractors. We're from California. Luckily, she was from California, so she was pretty cool because Idaho is not super fond of Californians. So she hooked us up, and then that's honestly how it was. I just asked somebody, hey, who do you know that does or this contractor, who do you know that does roofs? Who do you know that does HVAC? And I figured, well, if this guy, I like the way he works with me, I'm pretty sure he's only going to refer guys that are like him. My dad's been a carpenter contractor since before I was born. And I know like the trades that my dad's work with, you see the same guys on every job site because they all like working together. So we did that and kept going. After we got the first couple houses, we had to switch our contractor to the one I have now, and he's been super reliable. And we just have our systems built up to where we can do like what Mike would do. Let's say if Mike's going to go drive down and check on his contractor's work to make sure that everything's done before he pays him, I make sure I have photos, a video, and I have him sign a piece of paper along with my agent saying, hey, we've walked the house, done an entire video, taken the pictures. Here's everything that we've completed 100%. And then we knock those line items out and go from there. So it's just trying to replicate what you would do in person using technology or whatever you can.
So you also do, so once you have a line item of things that need to be completed, and once that's completed at the end of the week, that's when they get paid out as a contractor.
Yeah, and it has to be 100% complete. So I don't like say, oh, we're almost done with painting, or hey, we just have a couple. Like, no. And this is funny. So this is actually a good point. So this is what made me think of it. So we flew out there after the first couple of weeks. I'm like, I just want to understand what Boise looks like as a city in the whole. So we go to this house that was listed on the market at this time, and I was like, I know what happened. This contractor did enough work to where if he wanted to take certain pictures, it looked like the whole house was done. So there was like maybe not even that, maybe a half of the floor in the kitchen done, for example, right? None of the other flooring was there. The dining room may have had a little bit of floor. I'm like, these people got
It's all about the angle and lighting, Tyler.
100%. And me and my buddy, we're still friends, but he was helping me out at the time doing acquisitions. We were like, oh my gosh, you could see what happened. They took pictures perfectly to where it looked like it was done. And especially for me at that time, now it would still suck, but I'm like, if I would have done that on the first couple, I could have really put myself in a bad situation.
You know, it's funny you said it because I had a mason do the same thing to me. I had egress windows put in one of my properties to make legal bedrooms, and the angle that he took the pictures from made the brickwork look fantastic. When I got there, it looked like some kid had put in like putty and Play-Doh all over this wall. I was like, you gotta be kidding me, man. Like nothing's level. Had to tear it out. Had to part it over again. It was bad.
And that's why I like using my agent that I'm going to list the property with. He helps me with almost everything. But the good thing for me is he knows he's not going to want to sell a house that looks like that, right? Like if there's crappy craftsmanship, he knows it's going to be a hard time to sell on the market. But that wasn't my original design. But I started realizing, well, hey, you don't like the way things are done. You can
He has a vested interest.
Yeah, and we can talk about it because we want the house to look great. So yeah, it's tough, but people get creative. I mean, they'll figure out a way. Oh, look at this will look perfect, and it never looks the same in person.
Crooks, it can be just can't be smart.
So to clarify, Tyler, because obviously we know a little bit more about your business and maybe some of the folks that are just finding this for the first time. So you live in California, you're buying houses in Idaho. You never see it before you buy it. Sometimes you never see it in person. You see it pictures and videos.
Correct.
You never see it while it's being worked on in person, and you never see it when it's sold in person. Just videos, and pictures. Yeah. In case, and maybe the random trip up there. But your routine business is you don't see it in person when you buy it, work on it, or sell it.
Correct. Yeah, I don't ever.
So
see
yeah,
it.
that right there. It highlights why I chose real estate, because like we were talking about overtime and doing stuff. Like I went through a spell, and I'm sure we all did. And, I still work overtime here and there, but mainly just to be in the firehouse. But like before, like it was out of necessity, and it was trading time for money. So like you literally have found a way to leverage your time to, whether you're in California, you're at work, you're at home, whatever the case may be, you've been able to build a system to buy these houses, fix them up, and sell them by like using some creativity, making some calculated decisions, right? To where you're able to now produce income without ever physically going there. And I think a lot of people, I know whenever I first heard the concept of like virtual wholesaling or virtual rehabbing, like that was very hard for me to wrap my head around the fact you're buying something thousands of miles away. But realistically, it almost forces you to just be a better operator, because you can't just drop everything and go down the street, right? It makes you have a little bit of more checks and balances. So I think it'd be cool, maybe not in this episode, obviously, but to do like maybe a case study, how you found it, how you did it, and maybe walk some folks through the tactical level stuff. Like, do you use a GoPro? Do you do this? How do they share that video? Like, because I think that could be interesting to a lot of folks that are maybe working in these higher priced markets. Like maybe they're a doctor or a cop in Orange County or New York City or whatever the case is. And there's a lot of these markets that are maybe within 1, 3, 5 hours of them. It's not feasible for them maybe to drive there twice a week. But if they found a way to leverage their time with some of these systems or tips or tricks, if you will, they might be able to tear into a market that's more affordable for what they're looking to do, whether it be a flip or whether it be a rental. So I think that'd be pretty interesting at some point to go over that.
So, absolutely. Yeah. Let's do it.
It's interesting that, so I've got properties across Maryland from 3 hours west to 3 hours east. And one of the issues that I have is finding contractors that will show up, or contractors that aren't busy. So in one area, we just did a new build last year. We did a site flip, and I'm flipping another house in there, which I didn't mean to be a flip. It was just because it was going to be a getaway place for me. But I had so many problems finding contractors because all the good ones in that area with the massive growth of COVID are working on new builds. So all the good contractors are 2 years out from getting a hold of you. So you need to find like a couple of things, and wherever you're working on, you have to find like a good realtor you can trust. You have to find a good general contractor, good subs. It's one of the obstacles we have for real estate. Like Mike, most of your properties are in West Virginia, correct?
Yeah, the bulk of my business is the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia. So like I said, I'm kind of in that commuter area for Baltimore and DC. So I've chose to focus mainly on West Virginia just because of its growth and job growth and the where it sits. Like with the housing market, a lot of people are getting priced out of Northern Virginia. There's prime development there. So it's just where I've chose to be. A lot of my rentals that were in Maryland, I've been slowly selling those off and kind of moving across the state line.
Yeah.
So
I know some of your stuff is in like Hagerstown area. Do you so because you're on the border of basically 3 different states: Pennsylvania, Maryland, and West Virginia, and even Virginia, if you want to add that in there.
Sure.
How did you decide to pick on West Virginia to start going towards that area?
So where I was doing most of my investing originally, like you said, was a city called Hagerstown, and it's kind of like a C class area, but there's some decent areas, but cash flowed pretty much right off the bat if you could find something decent. And the problem I found is the taxes were pretty high. You had you had county tax, you had city tax, and then Maryland has the lead laws. So there was a lot of rules regarding the lead inspections. Then the city was charging you a fee to have a rental license. So I felt like every time I turned around, like they had the hand in your pocket for something.
So
And
they're
that
nickel and
stuff,
diming you.
yeah. So not that you couldn't make money, right? But there was a lot more what I consider like bureaucratic BS, where 10 minutes the other direction, I could go buy these houses. And yes, there was a little bit of trade-off. Like maybe where I was getting $1,000 for rent here, over here, I'm only getting 800. But then I only had one set of taxes. Or if I did have two sets of taxes, it was a little bit less. There was no lead laws. There was no this. And not that I'm trying to skirt some of these safety measures, right? Like that's not the deal. Like,
Yeah.
but I mean, if you really get down into it, you can tell pretty quickly that it's not safety they're concerned about. It's all about money.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a detective to figure that out. So I just decided to go all in on West Virginia, or I shouldn't say all in, mostly all in West Virginia, just because the growth that you saw there with the population and the jobs and you could see that it was shaping up. And I felt like there was a little less competition with purchasing stuff. Right now, that's not the case. There's competition everywhere to buy this stuff, but that's kind of how I ended up on West Virginia. So
one of the things I know Hagerstown too is, so when you're buying, and you mentioned class neighborhood, so you're in a C class. That was a C class neighborhood. So A class for me, what I consider an A class neighborhood is going to be like the mansions, the high end stuff, where all the Thrush's kids.
Sorry, guys.
No
that's
worries.
right.
So one of the things,
hey, we're doing this for families. They're involved too, right?
Yeah, come
I'm
on,
surprised my kids haven't been down here yet.
So if we do A class, B class, C class, D class neighborhoods, D class is going to be like the dangerous ones where people are getting shot and there's boarded up houses around you. C class is more like lower middle class, blue collar, a little rough around the edges. B class for me is like you're starting to get in the upper middle class where you don't have issues in the neighborhoods. And A class is usually, you can't really make money in A class unless you're doing major developments out there. Like, do you guys have the same view of the classes, or how would you differentiate it?
Yeah, no, D class I don't mess with. Not that you can't make money there, but like a good like litmus test I've always said is like, if I had you two guys in my truck and we drove by one of my properties and be like, hey, I own that, and you'd be like, that thing's horrible. Like that's kind of like a good rule of thumb for me. But if I would go there at night unarmed, is that C class? Okay, I can stick with that. So like I think B and C class is kind of the sweet spot for the people that are looking to do what we're doing. You start getting into the A class properties, like you need to have really, really cheap money. And I find that corridor is outside my reach for what I'm trying to do. So
Tyler, you're like, so we talked about Boise because when you first bought in Boise, like that was affordable. But now Boise had this massive boom during COVID, and like you're getting priced out up there. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, so when I first started in Boise, I was buying houses $80,000, and that wasn't market value, but that's what I was getting. And now, I think the cheapest we bought is closer to 300 in the last year. So it's crazy, and only in 4 years that's how much it's gone up. So it made me think of a couple of things. Is what Mike was saying about A-class properties. It's like, hey, well, if I want to keep rentals here and prices keep going up, then I need to change my strategy. I need to do something like he just did, corporate rentals. I need to do Airbnb, because a traditional just straight rental, long-term rental is probably not going to pencil out anymore in Boise at this moment. So yeah, I mean, I agree with what Mike said about the A class. It's tough. You have to have cheap money, or you have to have a business model that will allow you to cover that. And that's kind of why I like real estate too. There's somebody out there, I'm sure, that does have cheap money, or maybe not cheap money, but they're buying A class properties because they've figured out a way to make it pencil that a lot of us have not. And like, that's why I wanted to ask Mike. I think it's a good thing to share is he had a corporate rental that he was putting out in the market. People kind of laughed at the price that he was charging.
They were roasting him.
Yeah. The funniest part for me, and that's why I love seeing when he posted a follow-up post, is guess what? He got it. And it's one of those things where it's like, hey, he's trying something new. He's gonna see if it works, and then now he validated a new strategy to where, in my opinion, you don't want to overpay for anything. But now Mike can pay more for certain properties that are maybe a B or an A or a borderline A, because it's going to pencil out as a corporate rental. And my assumption would be that for corporate rentals, the wear and tear on that property versus a normal, like a short-term rental for sure, or just a normal tenant, will probably be a little bit less. You want to go into that, Mike, and kind of let him know?
Yeah, and I could do a whole probably episode just on this concept, but yeah, 100% correct. Like I kind of have started to shift a little bit of my focus to where it's like, how do I buy a little bit nicer asset and have a little bit less work, even if that means I have to take slightly lower return, right? So the property you're referring to, you're right. I found this house. It was a brick rancher, and it was in an area that I thought was a good area. So I bought it, fixed it up, did a normal rehab. It's got granite and white counter or white cabinets and all that. No carpet, all hardwood floors. It's pretty nice, right? So put it out there, and I put it out as a corporate rental. And for those of you that aren't familiar, basically right now, it's always kind of been there, but now you have a lot more of it with people traveling for work. For instance, a lot of the folks we're getting are nurses that are on contract at the local, hospital or medical facility for 90 days. They get a housing allowance. They're looking for a place that's furnished. They don't want to live in a hotel room. So they're looking for a place kind of like what I just referenced, which is a 3-bed, 2-bath house, nicely appointed. And it's something that doesn't probably make total sense as a normal rental. And it didn't really make sense as a flip. So what I did is I put it out as a corporate rental to some of the short-term housing providers. And the person that ultimately rented it was a client for State Farm Insurance whose house had been flooded, and they were living in 3 hotel rooms. So State Farm had been paying for 3 hotel rooms for a couple months before my property came along. And I had advertised it, which I was just kind of going with throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what stuck. So I had it on Zillow and Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and whatnot. And a lot of the folks that they're referring to that were roasting me, as my son likes to put it, was they're like, you'll never get this. This isn't DC. What do you think this is? Blah, blah, blah. And I had it advertised at $3,950. And the way I came up with that was suggestions from somebody I run a meetup. So they do this and they have more experience with it. So they looked at it and they said, I think you could probably do 38. And just because I have to be different, I put 39.50, thinking I was going to have to work my way down anyways. And that does include electric up into a certain dollar amount. That does include internet and some other things. So people were just busted my chops over it. And then I ended up getting a phone call from a short-term housing provider in Phoenix, said, hey, we are working with this client with State Farm. They're out of their house for the next 6 months. They're in this area. Looks like it's about 15 minutes from you. And long story short, they said, we'll give you the deposit, first month's rent. We'll prepay for the cleaning for when they move out. And if you're willing to do less than a year, we'll give you an extra, I think it was $50 or $100 a month. So I was like, okay, what's the catch? So I ran them through my rental process, had them apply, did all of that stuff just like I normally would to make sure I'm not moving in a bunch of, felons that are going to run a drug ring out the basement or something. And I ended up renting it for $4,000. So I ended up renting it for more than what I anticipated. And it was just, now it's like proof of concept, like you said, a way that I can kind of go look at a house where normally I would evaluate it this way. And now I can look at it from a couple of different lenses. So that's something
let's break that down. So like the short-term rentals usually has the highest return but it has the most management. Then long-term rentals has the least amount of management, I say least with quotation,
sure.
and the least amount of return. So corporate housing, it seems like that nice middle, like, you get a little bit longer tenants, but you get a little bit more money, so a little bit less headache. So for the West Virginia property, what would the market rent be if you did a long-term tenant?
If I put that on just a regular, I would say probably around 1,800 if I had to guess.
And what are you getting now, if you don't mind me asking?
4,000.
So instead of $1,800 a month, you're getting, you said 1,800, right?
Yes.
So 1,800, now you're getting 4,000 a month instead. So you
Right.
increased your net profit by $2,200 just by
Yeah.
having this as a 3, 6, 9 month corporate rental house. So corporate rentals aren't just one of those things where it's for a nurse or for a doctor who's coming in or for a contractor who's coming to stay for 3, 6, or 9 months. It's also people who have flooded houses, fire damage, who are going to be out of their properties for a long time. So it seems to me like my rule of thumb is the more management, the more money. The least management, being a long-term rental like a year plus, is going to be the least amount of money. And that corporate housing is a nice little middle where you make more money. So if you're making more money in these properties, you can actually buy them at a higher dollar amount. So a lot of these short-term rentals out there in the country right now are buying these short-term rentals for a higher dollar amount because they're expecting to get a return. I'm curious to see how that's going to play out with COVID, because everybody's staying stateside right now because they can't or won't travel outside of the country. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. I don't have any expectations. I'm keeping my eye on that one. What do you guys think about that?
So it's funny because I'm thinking of both of you guys. So for both, I know, Aaron, you have your property in Ocean City. Mike was just talking about that one specifically, and I kind of think I know the answer, but I just want to discuss it. Is when you guys are buying those properties, you know at least one other strategy than corporate rental or short-term rentals are going to work out. You're not putting all your eggs in that basket. I think, and I kind of think I know where Aaron's going with that, is a lot of people are buying these only based off of a short-term rental model. And once that artificially high demand goes away from COVID, I totally agree with you. If you don't have a backup plan, what are you going to do? If Mike, let's say Mike had to get $4,000 a month in order to cover his monthly expenses, if that corporate rental goes away, you're in trouble. And that's why I just wanted you guys maybe to expound on it. Like when you analyzed both of your properties, did it work when, I guess, your backup plan? Was it a long-term rental? Was it able to sell at a smaller profit than you normally would like? Kind of go into that if you want.
So I'll talk about the Ocean City property because I'm still going through that right now. I actually just watched on my Ring camera them cutting up a tree that had fallen on my front porch. Whatever, man, it's going to make money. So one of the reasons I bought that was I wouldn't have as much strategy there. It was a quality of life purchase. And we've talked about this before, is where I'm not making the most money off of this with the money I put into it. It's a place where I can get away to and enjoy my life. So I'm to the point now where sometimes if I want to buy something for me to get away to with my family, with my wife and my dogs, or for my family and friends to use, then I have that option now. And real estate has afforded me that option, is giving me something where we can go and kind of get away. But that being said, I bought it under market value. I probably got $40,000 in equity when I purchased it. I did a couple little upgrades to it. I have to have it reappraised because I'm going to do a refi and cash out soon. And I looked at the history of the property, and I know the market there because we used to have another property in that area. So I know with her payouts the last couple of years through her short-term rental, she was getting paid out between $31,000 and $35,000 a year net. So I know the property will sustain as both a long-term, short-term, or other. So I have more than one ways. And that's one of the things about real estate, is that everything about real estate is strategy, networking, and relationships. Like those are your 3 key ingredients for being successful in this arena. I'm looking now because I think that the market's getting very, very saturated the last 10 years. Everybody just focuses on long-term tenants and how that pans out. Like, I think you need to get creative in some of these deals and figure out, will it work as a long-term rental or a short-term rental or corporate, or can I do a mixed use on one property and make it commercial? Like, I got a buddy of mine right now who bought a house and he's letting it go to absolute dog shit because he's making so much money letting a contractor park their vehicles there. He's making more money as a yard for a contractor than he is as a rental for a house. So he just changed his strategy. That's one of the things that's we should highlight in this conversation, is that everything about this is strategy and figuring out which direction to go with the property. It's highest and best use. And the corporate house that Mike put in West Virginia is corporate. Like, that's highest and best use for that area.
Mike, how about you? Like when you bought it, you said it didn't really necessarily make sense as a flip, but did you, if the corporate rental did not work out, what would be your backup plan? And did you guys figure that out after you bought it, before you bought it? How did that process
So if say I couldn't get any traction on that, I would probably still try the Airbnb route, not the quite corporate housing route. But I would probably just make it a long-term rental, because I bought that house with the thought process of being like hold on to it for a while and use that. Basically, by the time my kids were old enough to go to college, that house would be paid for. And if I
Nice.
wanted to, refi it, pull that cash out, pay for their college or whatever the case may be, it just gave me options. Or so my plan was to hold on to that a little while. With that said, like if I had to, I could flip it right now. Like I could list that thing and make money. If I had to make it a regular rental, I could. It wouldn't be ideal, but I could. Or I could make it a short-term rental on Airbnb or the corporate rental route. So, or, I could do a wrap, which we won't even get into that on this episode. So there's a lot of different things I could do,
But you had
I decided,
options,
yes. And I agree. Like you hear a lot about these people going and buying a cabin in the Smoky Mountains or whatever, or Joshua Tree. Gatlinburg, whatever, like all these places where it's like, hey man, that's awesome. And I think that's great. And I frankly just don't know enough about it to make an informed decision. But my first thing is like, what happens whenever like everybody and their moms got one of these things and then the supplies inflated and then the pricing goes down and now all of a sudden this thing doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it will, but like that's something to keep in mind, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So saturated market, like if you look at, I'm just going to say Ocean City because I've been looking at their market for a while. Ocean City is a very saturated market. You have lots and lots of options to buy there. So one of the reasons I didn't want to go after a condo there was because what is something that not many people have there, and it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. And that's one of the reasons I bought the one that I recently purchased there, was because I want to have something that stands out a little bit. This one's set back in the woods. It's 15 minutes from beach in 2 different places. It's got a great community to it. So if you're buying the same cookie cutter thing in every market, like it's gonna be a saturated market, and you're taking risk by putting your money out there.
Sure.
One of the things I was going with the yard, my buddy who bought the house that went to hell, and then made it a yard for contractors, is Tyler. Like, just to get off real estate for a minute, like I know we talked about doing dumpsters and what you're looking at doing with that. Like, you want to expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah. So there's a guy in our department who owns a like an RV storage, and he has extra space. And my old squad partner, we met up and we're talking, and what we want to do is we want to put dump trailers on his property with space that is not currently being used, and then rent them out, because we started looking, and the price that we could rent them out for and the price we're paying for these trailers, we're like, hey, this makes sense. And I liked it for a couple reasons. It's more of a cash flow play, as opposed to like, I'm not going to get a huge chunk of money, but it's going to put money in our pocket every single month. And then the initial investment for those couple trailers between 3 of us wasn't huge. And I liked it because most everything I do is in real estate. And I'm like, well, cool, this is something different. I feel like there's opportunity there, and like, let's see what happens. That's kind of where I'm at now. And I think you guys are too. It's like you just said, both of your guys as those properties. It's like, now that you've taken the leap and we've taken our punches and you fall down a lot, now that whole like, well, let's see what happens isn't as scary as it used to be. I'm like, well, let's do it. We kind of know our risk. We know what we can sell these trailers for. And I just liked it because I thought, well, there's not really a lot of overhead. There's not a ton that can go wrong with this thing. If we get these trailers insured, we don't really have a bunch of exposure. And I'm like, well, let's do it. And we still haven't done it yet, but we were talking about it, and I'm pretty sure we'll get it done. But I just like it because it's something that I've never done before. I only do real estate, and it's funny. I was like, yes, I want to do it. Let's do it.
One of my closest friends, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So one of my closest friends does dumpsters, and he just bought a couple $100,000 worth of dumpsters. And every time he drops them off and picks them up, it's between $400 and $800 profit every time.
Yeah.
So I think it's somewhere between 6 and 8 months each dumpster is paid for, and then after that, everything is just cash flow. So, Mike, I'm gonna jump into something else, but Mike, you want to go ahead and hit whatever you're gonna say?
I was just gonna say, like, we're kind of covering a lot of stuff here, which is awesome. But, one thing it'd be kind of cool to highlight, like, I hope that we speak to a lot of folks that are maybe just looking to get started with something. And I'm hoping we can kind of be that catalyst to maybe get them to do it or help them to do it. Right. But, a minute ago, Tyler was talking about how he had to put all of his bandit signs on a credit card. Now, just for hell of it, he's buying dump trailers, and the journey that it took to get from that to that, because I had a very similar story. Like the first time I bought direct mail or purchased direct mail, and we can talk about that. We'll hopefully get one of our former fire department extraordinaires on here to talk about direct mail specifically. But I remember hitting enter and ordering that the first time on a credit card, thinking, if this doesn't work, I just blew over $1,000 and they're going to all be right, And now it's like I send thousands of dollars worth of mail every month and don't even think about it, because now it's just like, so it's kind of cool to watch that growth. But I think it's easy to miss that growth whenever you're stuck in it every day. So I just noticed your comment about what you just said about buying a couple $1,000s worth of dump trailers, just for the hell of it now.
Well, no, 100%. Yeah. And it was like, I remember talking to Jacqueline when we had to go put the bandit signs on credit cards. I'm like, hey, are you okay with me doing this? And she's like, if you think it'll work, I'm like, yeah, it'll work.
Meanwhile, you're like,
yeah, it's stressful.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool because you don't have to have, with a lot of these things outside of real estate, you don't have to have a ton of money. A lot of us are in the fire department. Guys like to work hard. Guys can work hard. They're skilled with their hands. You can do something like, Aaron does woodworking. He does well with woodworking. You can do something that becomes a catalyst for, hey, if I made $30,000 this year on woodworking, I could buy one rental property. There's my down payment and a little bit of savings. If I just did my woodworking and bought one rental property until you retire, you said how many years do you have left, Aaron? 8? 7. You bought 7 rental properties in the next 7 years. Yeah. How would that look? I mean, it would make me feel a lot more comfortable if I was in your shoes. And I'm like, well, wait, I know I can make money woodworking now. Now I have real estate that's paying me, and hopefully I have my pension. Yeah.
So a buddy of mine, he did, I'm not going to call him out by name, but he did about $30,000 in Christmas ornaments just in November, December. And his biggest obstacle was the USPS, or the Postal Service, getting them to the orders on time. I'm like, man, and he's somebody that we do a lot of the same kind of laser stuff, and we're both trying to transition into bigger laser stuff like etching guns or just different things. So it's one of those things, like if I can make $30,000 a year on a part-time job that I enjoy doing, then it's not really work. It's something that kind of just keeps my hands busy and my mind occupied. But that goes to show, like, when we invest in things, you primarily invest for 3 reasons: appreciation, depreciation, or cash flow. So obviously my woodworking would be cash flow. Your dump trailers would be cash flow. But a lot of guys don't look at the other benefits of real estate. I don't know, we keep going back to real estate because that's kind of our bread and butter. But appreciation is, just to give you a quick overview, is the property value goes up over time. So where Mike used to invest in Hagerstown, the properties don't usually go up in value. They kind of stay stagnant. You make all of your money from the cash flow of the properties.
The last couple of years have been a little different, but yes, totally.
Yeah, you're right. But like, I look at Baltimore and Hagerstown in very similar lights, where the values don't go up very high, very fast, like they do in, say, New York City or DC or Boston or the LA, places like that, where you can buy a piece of land, and like parking spots in DC are going for anywhere from $30,000 to $100,000 for a parking spot. New York's the same way. So it's crazy. Like, it's crazy. You can buy a parking spot for the same thing you can buy a nice house somewhere in the middle of the country for. And depreciation, you have the tax write-offs, you have the tax benefits to write off against your earned income. Like, I'm about to do a cost segregation study to write off against my earned income, so I won't have to pay taxes for 2020, 2021, and probably 2022. But that's one of the things, like, nobody really teaches us this, because we come from blue collar backgrounds, and we don't know these things, which is one of the catalysts for this podcast, is to kind of teach guys as we go along and we learn stuff. We can learn stuff from each other, and kind of benefit each other in our futures.
Bring the power to the people.
Yeah. They definitely don't teach about cost seg.
No. And, we're coming up on 50 minutes, it looks like, because we actually have a countdown now that we hit record this time. So, we're new to this, so bear with us. It'll get better. But there's a lot of topics we've talked about or just brushed over here, like cost segregation and PPC and direct mail and dump trailers and everything in between. So I think we have a lot of topics we think we'd like to chat about. So if you're anybody that is interested in being on the show, or if you know somebody that you're like, this group needs to hear this guy or this girl or this person or this topic, please reach out to us. We're trying to find a way to share a lot of this information with the folks that wear the uniform and kind of help somebody that's either doing something, kind of make it bigger and better, or at least more enjoyable. And if you're not doing anything yet, but you want to, like, we want to try and help those guys or girls get there. So if you guys have any suggestions, or if you're not a part of the Facebook group, you found this somehow in some other channel, reach out to us on Facebook. We got the First Responder Financial Freedom Group. But you guys want to wrap it up, give any closing remarks here so that we can try and keep these episodes about, what we say, about 30 to 60 minutes. Looks like 60 minutes is probably going to be pretty good. Hopefully fill your commute to work with a little bit of humor and maybe a dose of education.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I'll do the closing out because I'm going to try to do music to make it look fancy.
Looking forward to helping everybody out. Like Mike said, it's going to be fun, and definitely let us know if you have any guests that you want to see, and we'll go out there and try to get them on the show. And that's it. Just looking forward to doing whatever we can to kind of expand your mindset and hopefully benefit you and your family.
This is not going to be an interview. This is going to be just guys and gals chatting it up. So if you guys want to come over here and chop it up, then by all means, like, this is just to help everybody out and show that there's other options for our money to make money. And if something were to happen to us, then we have the ability to maintain a lifestyle that we've created for ourselves. So thank you for spending the time with us. Like I said, Mike said, check out the Facebook group, First Responders Financial Freedom. We're going to try to hop on here at least once a week. And we got people coming, got about 10 people from all across the country coming to check this out. So here's my little extra music, or outtake music. It's our music for the tone. Hey guys, have a good one.
All right. That's episode number 1. Thanks for joining us.